Welcome to episode 4 of Where in the World, Season 3, the detailed showcase of cities and locations that have been visited in the Arcane Adventures campaign setting. For Season 3, we follow the story as it unfolds within the nation of Esmine, the largest and most southeastern country on the continent of Iaslan. As always, in each episode, we'll have a map on screen that details the general location of the place we are talking about during that episode. Let's jump right in to episode 4 of season 3, Where in the World? Inasia. The great capital of Esmine, a sprawling city that plays host to the largest populace of the nation, and serves as its epicenter in terms of rule and culture. The long-standing city of Inasia is filled to the brim with diversity and intrigue, no matter where you look. From the days of old to now, Inasia has stood the test of time as one of the oldest cities on Iaslan, and while its roots are aged, they remain strong and influential. While records during the early 5000s were a bit unreliable, primarily caused by the fires in Agonsvale, it is largely agreed that some small expedition ventured far eastward across Iaslan in search of valuable resources. This expedition was likely led by Lord Donovan Inasio Esmine, an elf. Hypothetical routes theorize that the expedition stayed southward on Iaslan, putting them crossing through the modern-day Telinku region of Bupilasu, the southern edge of the Sulphur Chasms, and ultimately through the Grand Inasi Woods. It is believed that the party was searching for gold deposits, and while historians would agree that it is undeniable that other deposits existed in prior regions of their ventures, scholars are quick to point out that they may have just missed it by chance. Nonetheless, when a large gold vein was found in the central southern Inasi woods, the group of individuals founded an outpost called Inasio, sourcing for the middle surname of the group's likely leader. Documentation of all of this, however, is slim, until records began being kept by a man known as only Grantor. Whether this person was a friend of Lord Donovan Inasio Esmine, or even a later son, we are unsure. What is certain, however, is that this is a well-documented transition of the outpost into a town, recorded by Grantor, and was led and commanded by Lord Donovan Inasio Esmine. Several years passed between the initial settling of the area and the foundation of the nation of Esmine at large. But land claims of a rough outline of Esmine date to 5019, which is what most historians would agree is the founding date for the nation of Esmine as a whole. Overseeing the growing nation was none other than Lord Donovan Inasio Esmine, who would eventually become King Donovan Esmine in his later years. Grantor, after many years, would even head further west to settle a groups of smaller settlements before making a cut back far east on a port-side city and settling his own village there. But that remains stories for another time. Inasio, the now bustling town, eventually became Inasia, though none are completely sure of the reasoning or timing of the precise name change. Over the next 2 millennia, the small town became and grew into the giant metropolis that we see today. With over 850,000 people in residence within the city, Inasia is, by far, the largest city in Esmine. Descendants of Lord Esmine still rule over the country today, with King Alaric now ruling as the monarch, and has been doing so for the last 3 centuries. In the city center, an extravagant stone clockwork tower rises to the tallest height in Inasia. The clock tower connects to a sprawling palace complex, including the royal residence of the king and family. The massive palace, along with its entire estate, rises above the seemingly dwarfed houses of the rest of the city. For miles upon miles around the palace, Streets lined with wood and stone buildings stretch out, forming the patchworked city. It is key to note that the average height of the buildings within the core of the city is 5 stories, and they look small compared to the palace. The bay columns, the Inasia court, and the Ogtime clock tower rise at astonishing heights, dwarfing the rest of the city. Now, none would argue that the nation of Esmine is vastly different from other countries on Iaslan in regards to its economy and rule, but taking a closer look at Inasia makes that very apparent. Most grand capitals have districts. Inasia does not. Also, a great deal of the industry and economy of Inasia, and as Esmine as a whole, is driven and controlled by the government itself. The uniformity across the city, with paved streets lined by oaks and elms, and the common architectural style, to say the least, is intentional. In fact, the style is so unique to this area of the world that it is referred to, globally, as the Inasian build. Of course, the city wasn't always like this. In its early years, it took on a much more robust look. However, with major government funding and government controlling the industry, public works and public projects make the city look like a land outside of war, even though most of the history of Inasia and Esmine has been a key player in the Great Iazan War as the command center for the nation at large. On any normal day, a gentle breeze coming in from the surrounding Inasi woods and the light of an era shining down, one would expect the people here to live lives completely unaffected by conflict. While Esmine guards and troops patrol the streets occasionally, the average citizens sit on their porches, sip coffee from their favorite parlors, and dress fashionably for concerts or shows at local theaters. Some call it ignorance. Others perhaps call it something more severe. But either way, despite the negative views from the outside world, Inasia has a low crime rate and a very high satisfaction rating. Of course, not everyone in the city is wealthy, but why would the middle and elite classes of Inasia let anyone below them walk on the streets? You see, the truth is, below the surface of Inasia is even a more complex, sprawling network of tunnels, mines, sewers, and passages that run beneath the grand buildings above. Inhabited by slaves, poorer citizens, prisoners, criminals, gangs, and diseased people, the city looks beautiful and perfect at first glance. But that might only be because the people bury their problems, quite literally. You don't see many factories or mining operations in the topside city. Those are underground. Schools, libraries, houses, businesses, shops, restaurants, and other public goods live exposed to the light of Inaris. But the majority of the population, some estimate 60%, live confined in tight spaces and passages underground. But no one would ever let you look there, and you've never actually seen it down there, because those who have are quickly labeled as criminals and trespassers and are never seen again. Oh, what were we talking about? Oh, yes, Inasia, such a lovely city. The Royal Road runs northbound from Inasia to Falter Springs, where it is the most heavily traveled road in and out of the capital. To the south, a less traveled path heads deeper into colder forest, branching towards Bear and Highput. In the Ilfrost Forest, the bustling city of Bear and the smaller village of Highput lie southbound of Inasia, in the Gravenok Frostlands and the borders of the Ilfrost Forest. And of course, when royalty needs a getaway, a special road leads into the heart of the Royal Inasium Forest for a private hunting ground and the King's Chateau. We hope you've enjoyed this closer look at the capital city of Inasia and have found the details about it to your interest. Nothing is wrong with Inasia, we promise. Nothing to see here except a great and beautiful city. Long live King Alaric. That's all for this episode of Where in the World. We'll see you next time.